7:02, Mr. Chair.
I'm down, Mike.
We got people here, yes.
Okay, I'm going to call the April 27th, 2022 meeting of the Lakeland Quinsigamond Commission to order. Thank you all for coming. This meeting is going to be recorded both in audio and video, so you can watch all the action when you get home. We're going to review and act on the acceptance of minutes from the March 2022 meeting. And has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So moved. So voted. And review of and approval of bills and expenses. What do we have?
So for the month of April, we had one bill for the telegram for the refill notice, the legal ad,
Yep,
$45.56.
okay,
That's it.
thanks. Someone had asked me, Angela, you know off the top of your head how much a mailing costs? Like if we mail to,
Well, the dock renewals was $143.
okay, so it's less than I thought. Okay, so it's, so if we wanted to do a mailing of all the abutters, it's about $143.
Well, that's just the abutters with a dock, so it might be $200, probably
Okay.
a little bit more.
All right. Okay, thank you. And just a motion to approve the bill. Is there any discussion with the bills and expenses? All right, motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve bills and expenses as presented by Angela Snell, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Okay, thank you, so voted. And now on to public participation. My understanding is we have one person. Is Orlando here? No? All right,
Call his name again, one more time.
Orlando Silver? He's not shy, so if he was here, he'd definitely stand up. All right. Okay, so Commissioner's report. I'm going to defer most of my comments to the back part of it, because I got to go through the update, the management plan. One thing I do just want to bring up quick is that we had a site visit. I say we because I wasn't able to attend, but we had a site visit at the 350 or 305 Belmont. Up there with the 3 or 4 projects that are going on up there. Those are the sites that we're getting significant silt blooms coming into the lake every time we get a rain event that's probably more than 1.5 or 2 inches at a shot. So, and this has been going on for 18 months or so. The last one we had, which was earlier this month, correct? Michael, okay. Yeah, so that was no fooling, and that was the last one we had, which was number 7 that we've documented. So there's probably a couple that we hadn't seen in there for some reason, but that's what's coming in. So they figured out that they do have a problem up there. It looks like it's going in the right direction, and I don't know, Michael, if you want to say anything about that. Unless you guys want to wait until we get to the back part to okay, so why don't we do this? We'll wait till Jacqueline comes up in the end, and we'll talk about it. Okay, that'd be great. Thanks. And that's about all I have now, and we'll circle back around to the other stuff. Mr. Pica.
Mr. Chair, if I could just reiterate, it's unacceptable, these continued insults from that particular biotechnology development site, that it continues to happen. It's not right, and that's just my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on. The Eagles apparently have had eaglets. I've got some friends who have photoed mom and dad literally feeding the eaglets deep in the nest, so you can't see, be it 1, 2, or 3 eaglets, how many are there, but they've nested and they've laid eggs and they have babies. And I've been out on the lake a few times and have, in fact, seen, an eagle or two sitting on tree limbs right near the nest on Drake Island. So that they exist. It's happened this year. The trout are spread out that were put in the lake. That were put in. I know some trout were put in at Regatta Point. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, correct.
And in front of my house, I caught a trout just a couple days ago. So they're obviously swimming around. That I can tell you. And we can get a little more scientific data on this, but my observation of the lake just seems a little turbid at this point of the year. The clarity doesn't seem quite as good as I've seen in the past, but it's just, and maybe I'm other people have different observations, but I've just noticed that. It seems like the weather was better a month ago than it has been for the last couple of weeks, in that I think the cooler temperatures have suppressed a certain amount of boat traffic. Typically, almost approaching May now, I would have observed a lot more kayaking, although I'm seeing it, or other boat traffic, but the crew boats are out there, they're doing their thing, that's fine, but it just seems like it's, the use is suppressed probably by the cooler temperatures. Other than that, reserve any other comments relative to the issues that are brought up, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Piker. Moving down the list here, Sergeant Vitos.
Mr. Chair, our boat is not yet in the water. It's currently getting a facelift. We're getting some new lettering done on the siding of the boat, which has delayed us from putting it in just yet. With that said, the safety buoys are not out yet as well, so caution everyone when they're traveling around the lake just to keep that in mind. And we did notice that some of the safety buoys from last year, when we pulled them out, had significant damage to them, likely from propellers of boats. So we just caution people to not run over them or get close to them if they can avoid it. So that's all I have.
There was literally prop marks?
Yeah, it's prop marks, yeah.
They're hard to miss. So, all right.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, I have put out the safety buoy in front of the entrance to the Half Moon Cove,
Okay.
so I did.
You're doing your part.
Yeah.
Good. And if, seriously though, Sergeant Vitos, if you need any help doing that, we'll get a work party together and throw it out there. I don't know, but, in case the boat gets delayed or something, who knows?
It should be done. It should be in the water within, I'm hoping, the end of the week, early next week.
Okay.
But we don't know how the graphic situation is going to go just yet. So
Okay.
we got it designed, but it just has to be put on the boat.
Right, thank you. Perfect. Sergeant Drummond.
Our boat is on the water. We've been on the water twice so far for the regattas. Like I said, we have two boats this year. Well, the public safety boat, which is the fire and police shared boat, and then we have strictly a police boat that goes back and forth between Quinsigamond and Indian Lake. That boat's been on the water twice for the regattas. We did stop a couple jet skis, believe it or not, during the regatta already. They were from Leominster and did all paperwork checked out on those boats. But we'll have the boat on the water this Saturday as well, because there's another regatta going on. So we'll have a schedule probably starting Memorial Day weekend where we're on the water, 2 or 3 times a week during the weekend.
Fantastic.
So
Have you gone over to the Flint Pond side with?
we have not. No. We were on the water strictly for the regatta.
For the regatta?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't
Oh,
for patrol.
neat.
It was strictly for the regatta. But
Okay.
because we're on the water and we were in that area of the DCR dock, we decided to inspect a couple jet skis that were coming in.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna circle back around to the regatta
Okay.
thing, so I'm glad that you guys were out there. So I may have some questions and clarifications. Or your point, I'd like to get your point of view of it.
Okay.
Thanks. Super. Starty. Betsy, what do you think?
I have no report tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Just one thing, the masters rowing from the boat clubs is, due to the colder weather, is essentially non-existent, though everybody's probably noticed the colleges and high schools are out there practicing all week and racing on the weekends. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. All right, Moving along, we're going to do review and act upon the request for the WPI Robotics Resource Center, host an event on June 6th through the 9th at the DCR Regatta Points in Worcester with 25 participants. And do we actually have a permit application for
Yeah.
this? We just got to,
They filled one out, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Yeah, it's in the packet.
It's in the packet?
Yeah.
I saw the cover.
Keep
No, it's
going.
under the cover.
The water ski.
There it is, Mr. Chair. Let's see.
So,
Yeah, that's,
thank you. Perfect, thank you. All right, so I didn't see anything in here. This is basically a, remote boats. They're basically model boats that they do, and they have a regatta and race around with the boats. Is there any discussion in the board?
I think just so everyone knows, it's Monday through Thursday, June 6th through 9th.
Okay,
And Friday would be like their backup day if they got rained out.
Okay.
So it's during the day, and it's at Regatta Point, out of like they work out of the beach.
they work off the beach. The beach is not going to be open until,
Well, that's where they would stand. And
right, no, I understand, but it's not going to be open until swimmers until after Memorial Day, correct? Is that when they open?
I don't know.
Luke, do you know,
Probably when they have like.
when does the state open up the beach over there? Okay. I remember when I lifeguarded for the state, that was Memorial Day was the day we always started.
About on May 30th.
Yeah, okay. All right, so, Luke, any conflict with you guys? These guys in your way?
No, I was actually just talking to Casey about that.
Yeah.
Our rigging day is the 4th,
Yeah,
the same as the National Winter Row Day, but it shouldn't be a problem.
okay, perfect. Great, thanks. So this is during the week, it's gonna be kind of out of the way.
Now, just, Chair, an additional comment. 9 AM is usually well after all of the
All you
scholars
guys
and
are out the
rowers,
water? Yeah,
from the Masters Rowing have showered and gone back to work.
okay. All right,
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we accept or give approval.
well, just one quick thing. Anything from law enforcement? Do you guys need to get a little robotic boat to chase them down?
We barely have a boat.
I don't see any issues.
I don't see the issue.
All right. All right,
My only thing, Mr. Chair, is environmental police aware of this?
Once it gets approved here, then they'll submit their
Okay.
permit to
Okay.
Regatta Point and the.
right.
Okay.
When the chief in Shrewsbury signs off, it goes to EPO, right? Yeah, okay. Good, perfect, good question. All right, thank you. All right, so I'll take a motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, we accept this application for this race.
Second,
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right, there you go.
That's mine, you have one.
Thank you. Sorry. Review and act upon request for the Webster Adaptive Ski Collaborative to host an adaptive ski event in June from the DRC. So, get this in order, yes? Yes. So, that's a request. They did this last year. It was a little bit later in the summer last year because they didn't have their schedule together quite yet, and Quincy kind of got added on to the schedule. This was a very, very successful event last year, thanks to Shrewsbury PD and all the volunteers that they had at the thing. It's a great event. I'll say that's very rewarding to go to, and if you're interested in helping out, it's a fun thing to do. But basically, it's people who could have basically any kind of disability. It could be blind. It could be anything. My son has Down syndrome. He was in the event, as he's been in multiple adaptive ski events, and there was kids in wheelchairs and just about everything you can imagine. So, and they have these special adaptive skis that they can sit on that's very, very safe, and It's, there's people either holding on to the skis on either side of them. There's safety boats all over the place. They get followed down the lake with jet skis, so if anything happens out there while they're away from the dock, it's really good. They really liked the DRC site because of the access to it and, you know, the ability to watch the skiers from kind of the banking. So it was a very, very nice site. So they proclaimed that last year at least that was the best site they've been in. So that was a good thing. So it was, it's something a little bit different than we've done in the past. I don't believe it conflicts with anything else we have going on for races. It's on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, so it's actually June 24th. It's a Friday from 8 to 4. And then just so everyone knows, the 25 participants are actually split up into 2 groups. So there'll be like, 10 to 13 in the morning, and then a second group
Right.
comes in the afternoon.
Right. They bring in a lunch and stuff. Shrewsbury Fire also came down, which was also appreciated, and it was,
And Shrewsbury Police did.
the Shrewsbury Police. The Shrewsbury Police were there. Well, actually, the Shrewsbury Police helped us out both in the water and at the ramp. So it was a great. I don't know what the feedback was from the officers. They seemed to have a good time.
Feedback from that event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nice. And Worcester's always welcome to join in if they wanted to come up. And anyone who would like to see this, you're welcome to come down that day and kind of look at the excitement and the enthusiasm that these guys do. Any question in the board?
Yes, you might have said it previously, and I missed it, but what was the start time of this?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
8 a.m.?
Yep. They have a morning session they try to go like 8 to, noon time or so, and then they turn it over and get, it's pretty efficient, but they like to get the kids at least, 2 rides, 3 rides if they can squeeze it in, depending on how long it takes them to set up. But they're pretty efficient because they're staging one skier while the other skier's out in the water.
Yes, I was just worrying
And
about
last year we had 2 boats.
conflicts, because most of the Masters rowing is between 5:30 and 8, so I
Yep.
don't assume there will be a conflict. They'll just be getting off the water at 8 when this starts.
Yeah, last year, and I think that's something we can probably work around too, because they are going to be coming up the same dock and stuff. If coming out of Dundee.
Right, it's the
Right.
same dock, that's the only
Yeah.
thing I was worried about.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, that was, it was the same time as last year, so
Yeah.
there really wasn't
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of.
any conflicts. And I think really 8 o'clock is them setting up.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I don't think the skiers in the water.
All of
till
these
after 9.
events, there's always an hour of
Yeah.
Right.
getting going.
I'm there eating donuts that time of day. So, all right. Any other questions or comments? All right. if there's
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we accept this request for the adaptive ski
Is there
contest, or whatever it's referred to, event.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Voted unanimously. Thank you. And, okay, now for the fun part of the evening. A review of, clarification on permits issued before the Quinsigamond Rowing Association for spring races. Review and possibly act on events scheduled for April and May of
This-
2022.
This year.
Yes. So we already have permits and schedules out there. There's, in the race 2 weeks ago, there's been an understanding, I've spoke to multiple parties, and I know way more about the regatta community than I did 5 days ago. But anyway, so the race a couple times. It's been a understanding and within the rowing community and Lake Quinsigamond Commission that we came to a meeting of the minds at one point on an effort to, one, first and foremost is to make the races as safe as possible. Within what we have here. Lake Quinsigamond, we have physical limitations because it's very narrow, which is one of the things that makes it such a great rowing site. And today we're a world-class venue as far as the geography goes. So that's a good thing, but it really has limited us to this point to be racing 5 lanes across and have a lane open on the Shrewsbury side, the east side of the pond, for residents to be able to pass back and forth, especially when there isn't a ramp closure. So there's basically 2 kinds of races that the QRA manages. The one are the regular season races, and they typically don't close the ramps, and it's typically a 5-lane event day. And then there's the championship races, which they do close the ramp, and those are can go out to a 6-lane race, and they change the traffic pattern. So on a regular race day, the traffic patterns are to the right. So that's basically how that works. And there's some warm-up time required, before you race a cruise shell. So that's a lot of times they'll use a lane to go up and kind of warm up and then come back down and they'll race. Also, sometimes, not so much during the regular season, I understand, but sometimes in the championship races that the boats are actually based at Regatta. So in order to get to the starting line, which is by 290 and the DRC, they have to go down there. Typically, those boats travel on the west side, the Worcester side, to do that, and the lanes open. So 2 weeks ago, on a Friday afternoon, we got a call that said that, the high schools wanted to do a 6-lane race, which isn't on the permit. So our understanding, or wasn't the understanding of the permit. So that's what we're looking to do, is to clarify the permits, because the 5 and the 6 lane wasn't defined on the permit, which we're going to change. So what we do have defined on the permit is that lane on the east side, the Shrewsbury side of the lake, needs to be open so motorboats or power boats or any kind of vessel, tell you the truth, not a wakeboard,
Vessel.
any type of vessel, a stand-up paddleboard, a kayak, anybody, another shell, I guess, if it wants to come up and row on the south side that isn't involved in the tournament. So anybody that needs to do that. So that's in fairness to the residents that live there, so that when we're having an event, they'll be able to get out of their driveway, we'll say, on the lake side of the pond, which I think is fair, and be able to travel back and forth within reason. It's not something you're going to be tooling down in your boat making a wake. You got to kind of go no wake and be respectful of what's going on here, because it's that will cause a safety issue if there's waves rolling around there. These the shells, as everyone knows, are very, very thin and shallow, so it's easy to swamp them, and we don't want any of that going on. And the other difference so far with my understanding with a regular regatta race and a championship race is that there are more officials during a championship race. So typically there's law enforcement on both ends of the course. There's one at the start, one at the finish, or past the finish, and then there's also a law enforcement presence on the boat ramp itself, because the boat ramp is closed. And then there's also officials from the U.S. Rowing Association as well that are along the course. And that's mainly not mainly, but some of their duties is to kind of manage traffic going down the Worcester side, to make sure that there's no conflict with any of the boats going the other direction. So I'm going to ask Patrick to come up, if you wouldn't mind, and just kind of give us a synopsis. I hope I didn't steal too much of your thunder there. And thank you for the background that you were able to provide us.
Just so that we're clear, most of the regular season, all of the regular season collegiate races are over.
Okay.
The remaining regular season races are high schools. Those are primarily Wednesday afternoons, and there are a few on, I believe it's the third weekend in May, that aren't large regatta days. And then there are a couple of high school races that are run when we're in a break on the regatta days. So the majority, all
Okay.
And the 5 or 6 boat discussion doesn't seem to apply to anything moving beyond today. There are, St. John's and Shrewsbury High do have 6 boats for this coming Sunday, but it's being raced during the lunch break of of Women's Eastern Sprints. So that'll be, the ramp will be closed, the police will be there, and all the lanes will be open for them to use. So we really shouldn't run into a problem of that we would in a regular season race situation. Moving forward.
Okay. So,
I can hear.
now he's amplified. I don't know
I don't
if,
think that's a good thing.
I don't know if Liz wants you to go over that again, exactly like you said the first time.
Yes, please, because, yes.
It didn't,
Okay.
it didn't, okay. Would you mind
Sure,
doing that very nice summary again?
the remaining races, all the collegiate regular season races have concluded. The high school regular season races are about halfway done. Those will be run on Wednesday afternoons, and also in break periods of this Sunday's race and I believe next Saturday's events. And then there's one Sunday, the St. John's and Shrewsbury are racing, and there's no major regatta. So, but that race doesn't seem to have more than 5 boats entered in it at this point.
Okay,
As you recall, on the when we come in for the permits, we always tell you that we'll have the race schedules up with all the boats that are racing on the QRA.org site in all their lanes on by Tuesday evening, and we continue to do that so that anybody, once races are actually going on, people know what's going on that particular day, and you do as well.
okay, and I think from our perspective, that, we've talked about this before, is we really want, and I don't think it really matters to us which organization does it, or if you rotate through the thing, is that when we come for the schedule, this time of year or whatever, that it's defined and it's basically under one umbrella, so we're not getting 5 permits or 5 different rules in here and there. And it's okay, I guess, to have, more than one tournament director, we'll say a regatta director, so like if the high school races are a different person than the college race is, that we have a contact name, so if something goes awry, we can contact that person. But the permit itself.
Those actually have been noted on the permits this year.
What's that?
This year, all the permits.
All the permits have been done, and we want to keep it that.
Right, but the high school, there was a regatta director for college, and there was a regatta director for high
Right,
schools.
perfect.
So-
And we want to keep it that way, but there was talk at some point that, okay, well, maybe we'll just get our own permits and we'll just do our own races. And that's something we'd like to avoid if
Yeah, I don't see any.
If
I
possible.
don't see any need for that. It
Right.
seems to be, we seem to be keeping with the.
And that would include, the other, there's 4 organizations, my understanding of this, there's 4 organizations on here. There's the Quinsigamond Rowing Association, that's you.
Correct.
And that's basically schools.
Yep.
Colleges and high school and whatnot, right? Although with the background you sent me, it seemed like it was anybody that had a home, that declared this their home course. So it didn't sound like it necessarily had to be a school to do that, but then there's the Quinsigamond Rowing Club, I guess,
Right.
and that's Bill's group, right? And the master guys are people that really know what they're doing, and they're out there early in the morning. And then there's the Worcester Boat Club,
Yeah.
also a private organization with older, I shouldn't say older, most of them are younger than me, but it's
Right,
kind of a
most of-
master's program.
most of
And
the
then
staff.
there's the newly formed Lake Quinsigamond Community Rowing.
Right.
So if they're doing if any one of those people wanted to do a tournament, is it going through you, or is it
Yeah, and the spring races, everybody submits their race schedules, whatever they want for racing.
through the QRA?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Is that something you guys do in the fall?
We have, but Lake Lake Quinsigamond Community Rowing has one race that they run in the fall.
Okay, independent of you guys,
independent
they
of
come
us,
and get
yeah.
their own permit.
Correct.
And there's nobody else racing that day? No other organization?
That Sunday, no.
Okay.
I know in the fall,
That
we
weekend,
usually have a
though.
Saturday race, and the colleges are a Saturday, which is
Yeah.
QRA.
Yeah.
High schools are a Sunday, which is the Lake Quinsigamond Community Run.
Okay, so, so it's basically two different organizations applying for permits for that particular weekend,
Correct.
in this case, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But in the past, there hasn't been any conflict because one takes one day, one takes the other.
All right. So the traffic patterns on the 5-lane race days, okay? And it's, I'm gonna say this up front, is I really wanna make sure that this is really a focus on the open lane on the east side, the open lane for residents or whatever to come on. I may ask for some help from law enforcement here on their visual perspective. I'm happy to listen to in their thought perspective as well, but their visual perspective, when you're at the Route 9 bridge and you got to kind of manage who and when can come and go. You look down the course. If there's oars everywhere across the lake, do you guys tend to say, okay, you got to hold off here. You can't go down right now because it's not safe. There's boats in the way. Or how does that? Do you look for the east lane and say, okay, it's clear, go ahead?
Yeah.
How does that work for you guys?
We've had some issues in the past where some of the residents get frustrated because they can't go to and from at certain points in time. So
Yeah.
as long as there's enough room, we'll let them by, but it's kind of a visual observation of what we're looking at.
Right, so I'm trying to imagine that. You're sitting, you're at the Burns Bridge and you're looking down the course, and there's boats all over the place, but there's a whole bunch of oars sticking out everywhere, so, and the main goal here is to be safe. And typically it may not be, typically it wouldn't be safe for, a shell and a powerboat to kind of be in the same space. Is that?
I mean, if they're running it and throwing a wake, it's going to be dangerous, clearly.
Well, no.
Yeah,
let's
but even
qualify all of that by saying there is no wake. Let's just,
Right.
there's-
but
or
even
there-
so, it's hard.
Or there
It-
should not be a wake.
Yeah, or it can be difficult.
Okay, because you still got to steer around it.
Right.
And the boats are wide, with the oars out there wide, especially in 8, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so,
Mr. Chair, can I ask for clarification here on 2 points?
yeah,
I've looked for it anywhere in the written text and haven't found it, but I do know for over 10 years, there's basically been 2 unwritten rules that you did not mention, and so I'm asking for a clarification if they are rules or they're not rules.
okay,
The first one is the understanding for all of the residents around the lake who want to, during a regatta, use the eastern shore. They have to go as wake speed, which you mentioned.
Yep.
But the understanding I've heard from the rowing community for the last 10 years is they basically should only be moving at wake speed when a race is not going by. If an actual race is going by, they're supposed to stop and let them go by in their
Right.
lanes.
okay.
And so that is what,
That's my understanding of that.
okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is, my understanding also is, since the law enforcement and the organizations believe in, having a set rule for 24 hours, whether it's a normal traffic pattern or a reverse traffic pattern, on the race days when they have a reverse traffic pattern, that means people are going south along the Shrewsbury shore. So the understanding was that all boats, not only crew boats, but the power boats and of the landowners who want to get to the south end of the lake during a racing period, they can only go south. No one is supposed to go north on the Shrewsbury side when the reverse traffic pattern is in place. Is that correct?
Not my understanding.
That's not my understanding. How would somebody who wants to go back home not be able to then be able to go back to their home?
The current understanding I've heard for the last 10 years is they can't. So that's the reason why I'm asking the
Yeah.
question.
That's not my understanding.
The reason we opened the lane, my understanding of the lane, the eastern lane, is to traffic both ways. It's up and down, because the real goal of that was to allow the residents you know, when you're closing up the lake for 4 weekends.
Pass and repass.
Right, a pass and repass. So when you're closing up the lake for 4 weekends, that means that these people literally can't get out of their driveway on the lake side of the house to do anything, right? So, and it's even worse that say they go in the morning and they go south, right? Like you said, because they can do that, right? And then they come back and, you know, they got to get supplies. They have to,
Eat gas, whatever.
yeah, go to the bathroom. Who knows? But, you know, so you get stopped at the Burns Bridge and say, well, you can't go down there.
What you're saying is very clear and
Right.
understood. I just wanted to get an exact answer, so
Right.
when I'm asked questions, I can tell them what the understanding is. So the understanding is, as you clearly stated, and I agree, they can go both ways.
Correct. So,
Thank you.
as long as it's safe, they can't, you know, they can't do it, like, if someone from law enforcement says, look, you know, you're gonna be able to go down there, just not right now, because there's boats in the way, and it's just not, you know, it's not safe to go down there, and it's, you know, we'll make sure it gets cleared out, right? And that, on the rowing side of it, you know, you don't want people lingering.
No, and, Mr. Chairman, if
Yep.
the crew shells on a practice day when it's reverse traffic pattern
Yeah.
should all be on the course, not outside of the course. So out on that outside buoy line, anything outside buoy line, there should be a clear lane.
That should be clear lane, on the east, right? So, that's on a
That's 6-boat closed course,
6-boat closed course. On the
reverse traffic pattern.
5-lane course, that's not the case.
That's
There's
true.
actually boats
They return along the Shrewsbury.
along the, okay. So I guess that's why I'm kind of confused. I mean, is there, can we have, on a 5-lane day, why can't we just reverse the traffic pattern? So that they're running the same traffic pattern with nobody in the east lane, same as they would on a closed course day?
You're still,
Did I present the question right?
yeah, you're still, just to explain the course a little bit, the Worcester shore, the first buoyed, full set of buoys for the first lane is actually lane 0.
Right.
We don't use that unless we absolutely have to, as I
Yep.
said to you, Mr. Chairman, like if there's
Like a heat, like a
right,
championship.
if there's a heat
Right.
and 2 boats are in a dead heat, we advance both of them, so it can be a 7-boat final, and we have officials along the course stopping traffic, so nobody goes anywhere. But that's lane 0. Lane 1 is the next one over, and then it goes all the way out to lane 6. The outside lanes of 0 and 6 generally don't go in until this week in the year, right before the championship event.
But they're in now.
They are in now.
Okay.
Well, no, lane 6 is not in. Line 7, so the outside of lane 6 is not in yet. I think it's going in tomorrow.
Okay, so lane 0 is in, but 6 is,
Correct.
okay.
So, coming back on that side, the boats would get really close to boats in racing positions. We
Coming
think
back on the Worcester side.
if you were coming back on the Worcester shore. The other thing is that we found, and you know, we try to educate, but most boats follow a state of the right pattern. I'm not just talking about, I'm
No,
not talking about crew shells.
it's not a rule at Lakewood Sigmund, but that's tradition.
Right.
Everyone, yeah.
So when we don't do that, we try and have the lake closed because it's going to be confusing to people. So on the 5-boat races, what I term regular season races, we don't close the ramp and we don't have the same amount of police presence that we have to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on.
But I'm just thinking that, you know, just for, so folks can have, because the problem isn't so much that they're not gonna understand the traffic pattern, they're gonna be more upset that they can't use the lake. Even if the ramp is open, right? You know, that part of the lake is effectively shut down. You can't really do anything. You can't go out there, you can't water ski, you can't go buzzing across, you can't even make a wake, right?
Correct.
All good. I don't have a problem with that, especially during the heat. But you know, that's the frustrating part for people, is these guys will tell you that's when you start, people start getting hot because they can't move and
No question.
they either can't get home or they can't get out of their house.
Understood?
So so I'm just wondering, you know, we can manage the traffic pattern by, because we could ask that that we have law enforcement at both ends of the course in all races. So when people come off the ramp, that they know, hey, you gotta go up the Shrewsbury side, you gotta come back to Shrewsbury side. If it's a heat, you can't run down there during the race. You can't be like following them and filming them, even if it's your kid in the boat. And, you have to be no wake and all the other stuff.
The other reason for the 5-boat has been that there is an outside line of buoys in for that 5th lane. So you can run 5 boats across and it's marked as to what's outside of the race course. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
So-
it's
so
0
traveling
through,
back-
it's 0 through 5, it's 0 through 4. Is that what you're saying?
No, because 0 isn't
Oh, 0's
It's
not,
not installed.
typically isn't in there. So it's 1 through 5.
1 through 5, and there's an outside of lane 5, and because of the having to maintain that lane and also having boats coming back, it gives us the biggest area to maintain that lane for non-regatta traffic and allow regatta traffic to go back to Donohue's single file.
Okay,
Does that make more sense?
kind of, but I'm confused that, are the boats, the non-regatta boats, are they traveling in a marked lane? Or
No,
are they in
they're
the open
outside.
lane? They're in the open lane
They're
farthest
out-
to the east.
They're beyond the course. That's why we use the
Right, that's what
5,
I'm-
is
that's what-
because it's outside of there are no
Perfect.
buoys on the other side.
I'm
They're like
good.
single file,
Correct,
too.
correct.
They're like one goes, then the other's following. It's not like there are 5 of them trying to come back at the same time.
So the crew boats are they in the marked lanes or the unmarked lane?
They're on the way back there in the unmarked lanes,
Okay.
but they're single file.
So they're sharing the unmarked lane
Correct.
with a power boat, presumably if the power
Correct,
boat.
but that, I did, just to give you an idea, I did,
Maybe that we could tie the power boat onto the back of the shell and they could tow
oh,
them down there.
the, beyond, at the tightest point, which is right at the condos, the 1,000-meter mark, so about halfway on the race course, the tightest point is about 135 meters wide. Each racing lane is 13.5. So when we don't put that outside lane in until the championship week, there is enough room for boats,
And the
regatta
shell.
traffic and the shells.
All right,
That's the rationale behind it.
yeah. I'm just concerned that because it's not marked, I mean,
Understood.
one of the problems with the lake, period,
Mhm.
is there are no lines. I mean, most people that, they get in a car, they drive, they have, they understand the lineage and all that. On a lake in a normal day, it's like driving in a parking lot. There's no lines anywhere. You can go anywhere. So, you can say, well, you stay to the right, you do this, you do that, but, there's people going this way and that way, and it's typically chaos. So what I don't want to do is commingle, power boats, even at wake speed, with shells, especially if they're not expecting each other.
And what we do is if we run 6 boats in a regular season race, not when all the buoys are included.
Yeah.
So outside of that last lane on the Shrewsbury shore, you're gonna have a racing boat going south. You will have a line of crew shells from previous races going back single file heading north, and non-regatta traffic
In the,
in an unmarked outside of the course.
are you saying 3 different, no, the boat in the race is in a marked lane.
Not if you're 6.
Oh. Are the southbound boats and the heat going on at the same time? Are they actually in the same, you know what I mean? Like while the race is running, and there's someone in that 6th lane, which is what you're saying is the open lane on the outside, right?
There's no outside line of buoys on that.
There's no outside line of buoys, but there could be a boat going the opposite, right? Whether it be a
Well, that unmarked, just like you said, it's an unmarked area. That unmarked area is sharing a racing boat, returning boats, and non-regatta traffic. That's why we like that's the basic reason behind the 5 boats, until we get to major regattas, which has that last line in. Then we've got the police and we've got the marking,
right.
and there are never racing boats outside of the marked course. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes so much sense. I wish you did it on all the races.
Well, we do. Because when we
You
only
said
allow
the boats
5,
aren't in the marked lane.
when we allow 5, they're all inside the marked lanes.
All right.
If we go to 6, the 6th.
Anytime you go to 6.
anytime we go to 6 outside of major, like, outside of this,
Outside of a championship race.
Yes.
Anytime you go to 6, they're in they're in a open lane, well, it's not
Correct.
unmarked, but open.
that's correct.
All right,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I could clarify a little bit. The boats in the outside lane are either those who are returning from a previous race or going down to an upcoming race. They're not in the racing, but they were launched at the wrong end of the lake, and so they have to get down to the starting line, or they've finished a race, so they have to get from the finish line back to where they launched.
Right.
But they're not
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
that's-
race, but they're using those outside lanes to get back to the point they launched.
Okay, I understand that part of it, but I thought you just said that there's actually, if it's a 6-lane heat,
But they're not recommending the 6
We don't.
lanes during.
That's
the
why
regular.
that's why when we've had these discussions
oh,
about
okay,
these
so you're saying
permits
that's not,
Yeah.
for the regular season, that's the main reason why we've
but
said
you're saying
5 boats
that's the way
is
you
safe.
don't want to do it?
Right,
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't
I
wanna
got
do
mixed
that.
up. All right, okay, I agree with that.
okay.
I don't want to do
That's what, I'm just
Two
trying
boats
to,
is bad
I'm just
enough.
trying to explain our rationale
Right.
and how we've
Right.
discussed it and described it in the
See,
past.
if I can add the permits that we issued, just say a travel lane, and I think moving forward so that when the permit's issued and it's then passed on to law enforcement, environmental police, or you're giving it to the other coaches, it should say this is a 5-lane race or this is a 6-lane race, and we need to start doing that so that everybody's on the same page of
Yeah.
what is happening on this weekend versus next weekend.
Sergeant?
Couple things, Mr. Chair. I want some clarification. Is it no wake because of the race? Like, it has to be no, is it mandated there's no wake from the ramp to the bridge when a 5-lane race is going on?
Any race, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Number 2, I was part of that 6, this past 2 weeks ago, we had that
That's when the
6.
boats are passing those people who might be traversing north to south or south to north. If the heat's coming by, they should cease
Okay,
forward motion. Heat's by, they can go back to wake, wake speed only.
okay.
Is that what you?
Because there was a gentleman that wanted to come to the north side of the lake, and we stopped him and said, hey, can you hold up for 5 or 6 minutes? There's a heat coming
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
And, he was receptive. He didn't argue or anything like that.
That's reasonable, so, yeah.
Number 2, we did, like, there were 2, it was supposed to be a 5 permit race, I think, 2 weeks ago, but we ended up having 2.
Well, that was how this all came to light.
Okay, we actually shut the ramp down temporarily, and we shut the bridge down temporarily, because I thought it was
And
a
you
safety
let those guys race?
Correct,
and
I
it
did.
got through, and-
Correct. There was
and-
only 2 races,
Right.
and I talked to the St. John's people, and
Yeah.
I said, we'll shut the bridge down, we'll shut the ramp down for these 2 heats, and it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, and my understanding was that there was also don't ask again. So,
Well, if I can just comment on that, the
Yep.
other part is, even though it was just 2 races, all these other schools wanted to have 6,
Mm-hmm.
but we've been telling them, no, it's a regular race, they can only have 5. So
Right.
we really need to go back to our permits and
we need to
say,
clarify.
Yeah.
it's a 5-lane, it's a 6-lane, and then you would have it at the boat ramp, and everybody's all on the same page, and we don't have,
I agree,
them
but
in these
I was in
situations.
a rock
Oh,
and a
yeah.
hard place. I don't want to
No, no,
disappoint.
you
families.
called an audible, which I
I think
agree.
what we're trying to do is avoid
Avoid.
Okay,
putting you
yeah.
into
I
that
just didn't want to
position
disappoint
of-
family and kids, and
Yeah.
they came to me, and I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, no,
let's
and
do
I
it,
think, I kind of agree what you guys did. It was, obviously in violation of the permit, but it was, sometimes it makes sense. You made it safe. And you did it, and it lasted like 10 minutes, and it was done. So, what we want to do is avoid any kind of, confusion of what you should be,
Right. And again, there are only 6 boats the whole day that were on the water people wanted to use
Yeah, people come, yeah,
it was cold out.
yeah, right. And that's good, but if this were,
Correct. If it was a
This one-
70-degree weather day, correct.
yeah, if this was 70-degree day, that would have been a different story, especially with the ramp was still open. So, we just want to make sure that everybody's on point. And, if we have to adjust the permits and to have, and ask you folks to.
I think some clarity on how we do the permits, and how the permits come back out, I think it would be, for next spring. I don't think we have the issue with the remainder of the races.
well,
But
I don't know if we need to clarify it for a Wednesday race in case somebody thinks they can do 6 races, because I thought everybody understood it was 5 lanes, but apparently people just scheduled races against what we've been telling them, so,
Yeah, I said, that's, and I'm not sure how that happened. I mean, right. So,
so the Wednesdays, just to clarify, because I would like to just re-clarify the permits, any of the Wednesdays can't be more than 5 lanes. Right? And then the championships, which is the rest of the weekends, are 6 lanes.
right,
The only one that's not, the only race day that is not a championship race day on a weekend is 5/21.
So,
but that's within a championship race.
No, it's not.
Oh,
There's
so
one
this-
weekend, there's an extra weekend in May this year.
Okay,
So there's a weekend that 5/21, there is no championship event.
so through the chair to QRA, is this weekend the 30th? Worcester's on the water from 7 to 7. Is this a 6-lane race or is it a 5-lane race?
It's a big race.
So it's a big race?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's shut, it's
And the ramp shut down.
The ramp is
shut
shut.
down, okay, all right. I just want, because I have 2 new officers that have not done a regatta before, so I want to make sure they're fully aware what needs to be done this
okay,
Saturday.
perfect, all right.
Because environmental will not be there on the water, it's just going to be us.
I'll be there
Okay.
on Friday and Saturday if they need any.
All right. Okay, good. Okay, fine.
So,
Then I'll get to you in a sec, Luke. Just stand up and identify yourself, guys, so we, just for the record.
Oh, sorry, I'm Lucas Markran, I'm from Regatta Point Community Sailing. I would maybe suggest that, to add to the permit, that you can't, in spring races, you can't race outside of a fully buoyed course. And that would take care of a 6-lane versus 5-lane, because they don't put the 6th lane in until the championship season.
With that,
Well, I guess I disagree, because if they put it in early, and then people think they can, all of a sudden, we're gonna have other school, like, a full day of 6-lane races, and maybe the land side of all the permits is not matching a full, what the original intent is. So I get what you're saying, so that maybe is like, it says that, and this is a 5-lane race.
all right,
I think that would, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I think that would be ideal. The situation where we run into, though, is weather. So ice stays in until the 10th of April. We're way behind on putting the course in, and having it be, does that make sense?
we
might
did make
get
a
in
rule that you
situ-
can't break up the ice.
Yeah, no, we don't, but
I know,
we might be in a situation where we can't get the course
The
in
course and course.
fully in.
Yeah,
Early
all right.
April.
You're right.
I'm gonna
So-
suggest this, because, this isn't something we're gonna solve right now. So what if we went back to another little subcommittee like we did in 2005, and kind of hash this all out, get all the stakeholders together, and figure out how we're gonna do this and what's the best for everybody, and come back and kind of present it to the board with some more visual stuff, because I think that's confusing to everybody, is like where exactly the lanes
Right.
are, and we're kind of imagining it going down there and that kind of thing, so.
So then, Mr. Chairman, then for the Wednesday races and that 5/21 race, those are considered regular season races. The course is not shut down.
Yes,
So that,
so that's a
That's a
that
5.
should be a 5-lane
5-lane.
race.
okay.
So I guess if I can just
Oh.
clarify that for this year, and then, like you said, have the subcommittee so that next.
Yeah, that's not gonna change, the subcommittee won't
Right.
change anything that's going on from now until
Right,
the end
but
of the
just to
season, under
clarify-
the spring season.
The remaining Wednesdays are 5-lane races, 5/21 is a 5-lane race, and then all the other ones that are, the ramp is closed, are considered championship and are allowed to have 6 lanes.
7.
7,
We do have
7,
7s.
okay.
But then we stop everything on the race course. And because it's closed, we can do that.
Including the travel lane?
Yep.
But that.
No, that's outside the course, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right,
That's wrong.
'Cause
That's
that's-
outside the course.
yeah, because the lake isn't that closed.
No.
Okay,
Hi, thank you, yeah. Sorry, Anthony Jenna, I'm head coach at St. Mark's, and
yeah,
previously I was at St. John's I rode there, I've been at the QRA for 20 years now, on or off. I was just gonna say, and you just mentioned it, that I was gonna suggest that maybe we table to have a subcommittee, because I don't really wanna get into it, but St. John's has been running 6 boats across for 10+ years, so it's not a new thing. I also want to state that, having run those races, it's not desirable either. It's kind of more of a pain in the butt than anything. But no other programs really try to run 6 across because it's just not enjoyable. So I just kind of wanted to kind of make that point of clarification that this isn't really a new thing in terms of being a this year phenomenon of trying to get 6 boats in there. But when we do run 6 boats across, I can't say we, I'm not at St. John's anymore, but when those races do happen, they happen from lane 0, which is the first fully buoyed lane, through lane 5, which means that lane 6, and this is actually a race I ran today, and I sent out this document out to all my coaches. Lane 6 strictly says no racing. So theoretically, when we're doing our 6 boats across for those 1 or 2 races within the entire regatta, lane 6 is always open to traffic. So you actually have lane 6 and lane 7, which is the one outside. So you actually have 2 full lanes that are open to traffic to travel northbound back up to the DRC. So when we do have the 6 boats, we actually start in lane 0 to provide that extra travel lane for the lake traffic. So I just kind of want to make that that point clear, but I think a subcommittee would probably be the best way to address this.
Thank you. All right. Oh, excuse me, sir.
Hi, Bob Haddon, coach at St. John's, and I would agree with what Tony said about those lanes, and I also agree with that subcommittee. I just want to ensure that all the coaches of the teams on the lake are invited to get involved with that. So I don't know if it channels through the QRA or how that invitation comes out, but I would hope that there's a mechanism that we all get directly invited.
Yeah.
I'll make sure everybody's.
Yeah, I want to hear from all the stakeholders. So, all the people involved and kind of get that. And that's kind of for us too, because we have some thoughts. Okay, so that's good. So I agree with you.
So
All right.
are we clarifying it, though, for the remaining of the year?
So the remaining of the year, the permits stand at 5 lanes. Okay, so if anyone's got a race plan for the Wednesdays, the regular races, just like we always did.
Right.
And if anyone's got races planned for 6 lanes, you need to change that.
Wednesdays and 5:21.
Right. And
Wednesdays and 5:21. So those 2, is it every Wednesday? Do they have permits for those races?
There's a couple more Wednesdays.
5:4,
Well, it's the 4 Wednesdays.
5:11,
May.
5:18, yep.
Those are all under a permit somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So those races are gonna be 5 lanes. We're gonna ask law enforcement to enforce that. So if you go out there, they're gonna shut you down. Okay? And this, I'm not trying to like,
5:21.
huh?
And 5:21,
Correct.
that's Saturday.
So that's, the schools can do, it's not their fault, and they shouldn't feel bad that a kid's not gonna be able to race if the coaches didn't set this up right. Fair?
Yeah.
I'm just, all the coaches, I don't
No,
know.
this is perfectly fair. I mean, I work in accident insurance for a living. I'm all about safety, so.
Okay,
No, I'm fine with that.
all right, good. St. Mark's doesn't get mad when you wear the St. John's colors?
It's been a point of contention.
Okay. That's what I thought, okay? All right, good. I think we're done.
Thank you.
Oh,
Mr. Chair,
sorry, sorry.
we're done with that, but I want to go back to an earlier point.
Yeah.
It's the question of what we call the reverse traffic pattern, because that has created a lot of confusion among the Masters Rowing Clubs. And the reason the confusion is caused, and that's the reason why I brought up the point earlier, is the normal traffic pattern is going counterclockwise around the lake, south on the Worcester shore, north on the Shrewsbury shore. And when we have these special regatta days, what is always announced by law enforcement in the town is it just says simply, we're going to have a reverse traffic pattern.
Right.
Now, everybody in the rowing clubs then argues, oh, it's the exact opposite. We just reverse the direction we go around. When this is really not correct, because on the Shrewsbury shore, on the major regatta days, we have 2-way traffic on the Shrewsbury shore. So we have to be more particular in describing what the traffic pattern is on big race days, other than just saying it's the reverse of the normal traffic pattern. Because on race days, we have 2-way traffic on the Shrewsbury shore, and that confuses members of the rowing clubs.
Okay, and that's a fair point. So let's talk offline, because I want to see if you're going to be available to help us with the subcommittee. Our resident rowing guy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on, I think, because, is that, you're clear, Angela?
Yep.
We got what we need?
I've been clear all along.
Item 10.
And you've been right, as you've been pointing out. Okay, there you go, thank you. Review and possibly act on request for Regatta Point sailing, which actually, for fall rowing, so it's actually Regatta, Lake Quinsigamond community rowing.
Yeah, sorry, I wrote the wrong name on the agenda.
That's okay.
That's okay, we know who he is. Lucas
So,
Community Rowing.
my name is Lucas Markman. I'm here on behalf of Lake Regatta Point Community Sailing and Lake Quinsigamond Community Rowing for a permit for October 8th and 9th for a fall regatta.
Okay,
The
so,
weekend?
It is Saturday and Sunday, a Columbus Day weekend.
No, it's Columbus Day, okay.
There's a different traffic pattern,
Same traffic pattern.
but the whole length of the lake.
It is,
So it's-
yes, it's not the spring course. It's a 3-mile course, but it's the same direction as normal.
I think we need to clarify all that.
okay,
Yeah.
so this isn't like a snake, this is just on the north, this is in between Burns and the 290 Bridge.
It's from Drake Island to the Donahue Rowing Center.
It's like the snake.
Oh, it's like the snake, so it's the same course.
Similar course, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean,
Drake Island to the,
all right, one sec, Patrick. All right, and, so this year, and this is another thing I think we need to figure out is, you know, the scheduling of when we're not through the spring season yet, so we're kind of hoping we get that behind us before we schedule anything for the fall season.
Sure.
And, you know, that's gonna be another couple of weeks, I guess, at this point, right? Because we got races going up to the end of May, including Memorial Day weekend, correct? So, and my understanding also, based on what Patrick just said at the table, this particular day is there's a conflict, because there's usually a college race going on or another race going on that day.
So for this year, I believe, Patrick, and for like last year and maybe next year, our race has always been Columbus Day weekends.
Yeah.
And their race is based off of the week before the head of the Charles Regatta. This year, those 2 weeks are different weekends, but in certain years, in certain alignments of calendars, they would fall on the same weekend.
So you're saying that your race is,
Not the same weekend this year.
and let's
As-
just
as
talk about
the
that, Mr.
snake.
Chair.
okay,
We should, you know, you folks will have to work that out, but let's just talk about this October 8th and 9th. Okay? Because we don't, in terms, it's like a subcommittee issue. You folks should work that out before we come here, and before we spend half an hour, you know.
well, that's good,
Chasing
but they're
our tail
asking,
over
they're
that.
asking for a permit before they work it out.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that everyone's kind of got fair representation here before. My preference, again, back to the comment early in the meeting, is I really want you folks, and I say you folks, the entire rowing community, all the 4 organizations, to be able to work this stuff out before you come to us, because, you know, we don't want to, we kind of want to avoid being the, you know, the Supreme Court or you know, the having to mediate those types of issues out there. I mean, we'll do it if you want, but the other part of that I'm going to caution you is, you know, just this whole 5-lane, 6-lane thing has brought a whole bunch of light onto it. So we're going to make changes that will be more defined. So we're basically narrowing
Yes.
the things, and every time that happens, we figure out, oh, that's a hole in the fence, oh, we didn't think about that, so maybe we should have that in the permit. So I don't want to have a, you know, 10-page permit either, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, and, you know, it's a rich tradition on the lake, it's been here for a long, long time, so, and we want to maintain that as long as possible. You know, and these aren't the only factors we're dealing with. The smaller races, yes, the bigger races, you know, are you know, things may change there beyond anyone's control on that, but, so what I'd like you guys to do, and is this fair, if we kind of shelf this and work out the schedule amongst the,
I don't think there's a conflict of interest in the schedule. I don't
oh,
believe.
okay, so,
This year.
This
No
year.
conflict
This year.
this year.
Great, as I said
I
before.
haven't looked beyond May, so I honestly have absolutely, all I know is that the
it's typically, you guys typically Saturday and Sunday, you do Saturday, he does Sunday.
Yep.
This year, it may not matter because it's a different, the
It may
dates.
not matter, but I haven't looked at anything beyond May, honestly.
Well,
I think,
would you still want to hold your race the week before the head? The head of the Charles?
I believe so, but
Okay.
I'd like the opportunity
But
to check.
we know what the head of the Charles is going to be, yes?
Yep. Yep, it's on the 23rd that
Okay,
weekend,
and so you're,
2 weeks before,
so you want to run your race 2 weeks before
the
that?
head of the trials.
Okay.
Yep.
So presumably, there wouldn't be a conflict with that one, Patrick. I don't want to have to like readdress this or change anything around
Right.
later on.
I can't answer as to when.
All right,
I also think we need to make sure we're putting in specific information so that we don't have any issues with law enforcement or closing the ramp. Everybody is understanding, sorry, but like how many lanes it's gonna be, where people are coming, like we should have a map.
okay, so these are the things we want to make changes at, because these are the questions that we're having here, and it's this whole 6 versus 5, and we don't, like, we're trying to envision this,
Right.
from the water side of it, which looks like chaos, but, we want to see something from the top and say, how far are we, and how, what can we fit in here safely and all that. So, and you guys have given us some diagrams, but what I'd like to do, if this is fair, is to table this and I'm just trying to think, will May give us enough time, or should we just table it till June? And so we have enough time for get everyone, all the players involved?
We can work it out with them before next month, before next month's meeting.
But the
I'm not just talking about
subcommittee,
this, I'm talking about the whole,
So that you're not going back and looking at permits to
Right.
say, did this one have this one and
Yeah, yeah,
that? You want it
exactly. thank you.
all the same.
What I'm trying to do is, we think that we probably should be making some changes to the way the permits are done, the applications are done, so we know exactly what is gonna happen. So that way, nobody can come back later on, to everyone's surprise and say, oh, no, we're doing 6 lanes, we don't, that's what we're trying to avoid here, so we don't have those issues going on. So, will that do you think that'll give us enough time, Angela?
Yeah, because I think if
Can we
you
pull this
do
off
the
by May?
committee in May, and then you have that discussion at the May meeting, and then do the fall permits in June,
Okay,
if that
okay.
gives people enough
Will that work?
time.
Sort of. A couple of issues with that, as I see it, is one, that limits our ability to advertise. So people are figuring out their fall schedules towards the end of school year, and if we're doing it in June, we no longer can advertise when our regatta is, because we don't have the date saved, which we can do. We can
These
put off.
these schools?
We have a lot of high schools, and the reason why we add the Saturday race is for masters rowers. So we want to increase the number of people outside of high school to be able to row.
Are you gonna invite the Quinsigamond Rowing Club guys? But I know they're
They've been
They're a
banned
wild bunch.
perpetually for disorderly conduct.
they've been flagged
Yeah.
to get the red card.
What's
Good.
your main form of marketing?
We market through Regatta Central. We also market by contacting all the high schools and rowing programs, youth rowing programs in New England and New York.
Okay, so, all right,
And then the other part is just, if I leave here without a permit, I would like to know what I would need to have in order to secure a permit in a later date, or in enough time to
that's what
create it.
we're trying to figure out, Luke.
Right, and I'm just saying that if we do it next month, and then I can put it together in June, it'll be July by the time I get it together, and then, I just don't want it to drag on.
Right, well, either do we, but
Right.
the other part of it is, we're trying to make this, more manageable on our end, and so it's pretty much defined. And so when law enforcement goes out there, that they know exactly what's supposed to be going on in that regard. So, just so there's no, confusion on that side, which is what we had. So, had this not happened, we probably wouldn't, I would have been sailing through and say, okay, and we would have been discussing the conflict of the dates, and that's about it right now. But at this point right now, we kind of want to change the way that the permit application process is going. And I think we want to be able to do that for the fall application. Yes?
Oh, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
As soon as
Right,
we
so
can agree.
that's the, for us, that's the holdup, is we want to make sure that when you do the fall, when you do the fall application, you'll know how to fill it out.
Right.
Because it'll be defined by then. If we can get this done by May, and because once we get the application done, it may not take you a long time to fill it out. We're not trying to make like I said, we don't want a 10-page thing. We just want to make sure that we have the right information on there. So we just, again, kind of doing some housekeeping here and tightening it up a little bit.
Sure, and if we could get that committee soon, so I can
Yeah.
fill it out to whatever specification.
I'm raring to go. I'd rather get it
Yes,
behind
me
us.
too.
Okay?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment supporting the applicant. Most of the fall races are already being advertised.
Yeah.
So we are really constraining him by adding another month of waiting. So we really should work very hard and very quick so we don't constrain him too much.
Okay. So if we get this done by May, it's not going to beat you up too much.
Hopefully not, no.
All right, so we're going to try to do our best to,
Here, Mr. Chair.
And I know you guys like seeing me, so I'll be back next
oh,
month.
yeah. Pardon me?
Thank you.
You're here, I just
And you'll be on the committee too.
I- Yeah, so
advocate.
you'll see me all the time.
All right,
Bill Nelson's comments, they put a lot of effort, they're gonna have 1,200 participants, October, 9th and 10th, what is it?
8th and 9th.
8th and 9th. From my observation, living on the lake for decades, 70 to 80% of the boat traffic is gone. At that point, we're talking, it's 6 months in advance. We heard from him, he has to advertise for schools in terms of making it a successful event. I have some concerns that we should move on this. That's it, thank you, Mr. Chair.
okay. All right, so the whole permit thing, what do you want to do about that?
Can we make a motion?
It's already made out of permit.
No, to redo the permits.
Well,
We weren't expecting this permit.
I think we
So-
should
so
still have
Joe-
your subcommittee talk about this and other issues brought up previously tonight, but just my one opinion, Mr. Chair, I feel like we should, take a vote on even tonight, and bring it back to us if there's that much negative, response in terms of approving this tonight or not. Doesn't mean he can't come back and relative to some criteria that you have that somehow or other the commission at large feels we're remiss about.
Well, my concern is some of the things that we want to include on the permit, right, aren't called for on the application. In other words, there's nothing on the permit that says it has, we're not asking him to define 5 lanes or 6 lanes, which one they're going to have. All we're saying is you have to have a travel lane open.
For marketing purposes?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Since this is like the snake race, is this a timed race where one boat goes off every, 30 seconds or every minute?
Correct.
And so there's just one single lane of traffic.
So there's no
going from
lanes.
Drake
Right.
Island to the finish line at Donahue. So there are no lanes, no course. There's a few buoys left in place warning people about spots where the water might be shallow or don't go too close to a rock or something. But there is not multiple lanes. So the question of how many lanes is non-existent. There's one lane.
Well, but the question that is existent is that there's no visual of the course.
In your application, I do have the visual of the course here, the course map, and he is correct, just to clarify, it is a staggered race start.
Okay.
So every boat starts, and then they have opportunities to pass each other, except in the narrows, which we constrain. But then it is a staggered race, so it's not 6 boats across, it's one boat every 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay, so these are the things we wanted to define in the application.
Sure.
Because we don't, again, based on this application, none of that's in here.
Correct.
We don't know, based on the application, we don't know where the race is going, that it's a staggered timed race. These are the things we're
Right.
trying to clarify. So, right now, you're saying that it's gonna be a staggered, is that the information, can we move forward on that information? We know what the course looks like?
I guess, so we would say it's a one-lane course.
Essentially.
I mean,
It's a staggered time.
I just don't want like, oh, there's 3 people racing, like, and I'm not saying you would
Right.
do that, but I'm just, when we pass this information on to all the other entities that have to approve it, we need to be more clear on what we just approved, because they come back to us and say, well, what did you mean? You approved a race.
Okay.
I didn't
So-
know it
so
was a
if-
one-lane race, so.
If we had a motion, okay, that said that this application and its
Staggered start.
staggered start,
Head race, staggered
can you
start.
submit the drawing of the course?
Sure. Right here, right now, or you
Yes.
would, yeah.
And that's how we define the permit. Yes?
Mr.
So,
Chair.
yep,
Actually, there is a definition in the rowing community. This is called a head race. So if we just identify it as a head race, that then
Oh.
implies all of the rest of the things that we've talked about, some of them, such as a staggered start, but all the other things as well.
But the non-rowing people that have to read the permit don't know what that
Don't
means.
know what that means.
Right.
I was gonna ask Betsy
Yeah.
if she would know what a head race was.
I thought going to the head, I know what that means.
Yeah,
but I don't
exactly,
know
yeah,
what
okay.
that-
All right, so,
I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
Mike, what's a head race?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not a rower.
It's like the head of the Charles.
Yeah,
But for
The head of the challenge is laned.
no.
No, it's not? That's a head
No,
race?
it's not.
There,
They just-
there are lanes to get you through the narrow bridges, but that's
Okay.
just to keep you from hitting the abutments.
Okay, well,
But
that's
I
a good
think
idea.
to Angela's point, it's presumptuous to think that
Right.
everybody's gonna know what that is.
I don't, you can call it a head race, but we still need to have that.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are okay with it as a head race staggered start, I mean, we can clarify it to put in the permit that then gets passed on to all the other entities. I mean, I'm okay with that. If you're okay with it, it's just,
Okay,
I just think we need to have the
Patrick.
map. How are the people getting to the head? How do they get back?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add, it is very important for us to have that communication
Yeah.
prior to us having a boat on the water, so we know what's
Right.
going on.
and we're asking the
It is-
chief to sign this,
It's
so,
crucial information for us
Yeah.
to have.
right, you guys should know this ahead of time,
So
and all law enforcement, because you guys are the ones that are out there taking the heat,
Correct.
so to speak, so,
Patrick's been raising his hand.
I know. I just wanted to make sure the commission got their 2 cents worth in. Patrick?
If Lucas says we don't generally race on that day, I don't take him at his word. I have to, but we're not prepared to go into fall racing at this point. And in the past, you haven't accepted fall permits until the June meeting. So,
That's what I thought.
yeah,
Up in-
so I don't, I mean, I don't, if it's exactly as you say, in fact, there is no issue with us, but I would like the opportunity to check, because in the past, they haven't run a Saturday and Sunday. Now they're looking for a Saturday and Sunday, and I don't know I take your word that it doesn't conflict, but I would like the opportunity to look at it before you give them approval and it's a done deal.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a recommendation that we at least table it to the next meeting, or Patrick, how quickly?
Yeah, we can figure it out as soon as I make a couple of phone calls tomorrow.
What I can do is do a conditional approval,
Okay.
okay? And the conditional approval will be, one thing I want to get the drawing and we'll define a head race, okay?
Yes.
And what that is. And the conditional approval will be based on that there's no planned conflict with this. Patrick, I'm doing this, you know, not the way I want to do it, but what I don't want is you come back and say, well, we want to race that day, even though you really don't need to, okay?
We have a Saturday race but I need to talk to the people that run it.
Okay,
And this is, it's sort of,
I just want to make sure, saying, oh, no, we do want that day, like,
I'm
and then we're going to have another race, 2 weeks later in front of the head of the Charles.
I'm unprepared. and
Okay,
this is-
all right.
And quite honestly, this is not when you've entertained these permits
Right.
in the past, so I'm not prepared.
So, so, do you understand, Lucas, that there's a kind of unfair because they weren't, traditionally, this is not how we do it?
Correct.
So you kind of come in premature on the fall stuff? So,
Yeah, it's just things are getting earlier and earlier with all of and last year, we had a successful program, but we were trying
Right.
to grow it. And one of the things they had asked for was an earlier date set.
all right. Well, even if you set the date in May, it's still earlier than June.
True.
So is the board comfortable with the conditional motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Chair.
I
If
didn't
you
make
can
the
make the motion, otherwise I'll make a motion that we conditionally approve this date of October 8th and 9th
Right.
for this race relative to the concerns that we'll have answered
Okay.
by that time and let the fellow move forward with his plan.
Is there a
And
second?
I second that.
All those in favor? Sergeant?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So voted, Lucas.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Leave me the map.
Oh, yeah.
The map,
I can send you a nicer one, but this is,
just so I have the-
that would be fine.
Can I make a suggestion? This is what I do with sports permits for like the fields, is I have a deadline of like, like October would be ideal, October or November for the spring. And then we come up with either May or June for all the fall events, so that everybody knows that's when we would first entertain.
Right.
We have that published, we would put that
I-
on the permit.
I agree.
And then we're talking about all the things at the same time. I know the permits for the spring went out late this year. So I'm always hearing from like the EPO and for the marine permit and the fishing and boating access that it was late, and then we're struggling with getting, details filled and environmental police. So it gives everybody time.
Okay.
So, maybe that can be part of the
Special.
discussion.
I think
on the
you're
new
right.
Application,
We'll
I
have-
just
we'll
think
have-
it'll be
Add
easier that
to
we're
the
all.
Subcommittee.
I have a preamble up here.
Yep, so the fall will be, the spring races will be due in October the previous year, and then the fall races will be due in May or June, we'll figure that
Yeah.
out. Okay,
Maybe on the special use application permit of the Lakeland Sigmund Commission, we can have some preamble guidelines like that there.
Yep.
That can
Okay.
be worked out during this committee that you've talked about wanting to have a subcommittee.
all right,
Agreed.
good, thank you. Moving on, so,
Item 11.
update on lake management plan. Discuss the permit of the drawdown at Newton Pond. So, right now, we're looking for a map of, I'm not sure where we are with the permitting for Newton Pond, to be frank. So, I'm gonna move that one. I'm gonna table that for right now. Discuss and approve funding for weed mapping on Lakeland Sigmund. So, is that the part that Worcester's doing? So we don't really need to discuss it, right?
Sending in a PO request tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's, and thank you for doing that. Discuss and approve funds for bid preparation for 2022 season. Is that something you're also helping us with, Jacqueline, or not helping us with?
Angela and I had a meeting last week, I believe.
Yeah, we still needed clarification on the Procillicor.
What are you looking for clarification?
Oh, so we were just, because we haven't had the mapping in a few years.
Yes.
We were definitely relying a lot on, as we're creating these bids the treatments, to treat a little bit more, a little bit less based on what the actual conditions are.
Sure.
However, we weren't sure what the plan for the Priscillacor was, because my understanding is that we cannot treat the same place with this Priscillacor, or there's no need to treat in the same place with Priscillacor in Half Moon Cove. That would actually not be advised to do so. But I do remember you mentioning something about Old Faith.
Yes.
And just approximately how many acres that would be of growth of milfoil.
Okay, so all we need to do is determine what, because I still need to get kind of a nod from Natural Heritage. Because that was, initially Old Faith was a control area. We literally didn't find any Vasii in Half Moon. We found a narrow leaf Potamogeton, but not Vasii.
Yeah.
So, but we did find Vasii in Half Moon, Old Faith. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of flip it and use the Half Moon for control and
Yes.
go back to use Old Faith as the actual point, so we know
When
that.
you say control, you mean?
Well, they wanted a control area that we didn't treat to see if, if the Vasii was living or dying or whatever, so.
However, it wouldn't be a control if we applied the Priscillacor last year and it killed everything.
That's true. Well, we don't, well, that's the problem, that's the challenge with, to me, it's two separate things. The weed map and the regular lake, this is what I wanted to do, is I wanted to map the weed map the lake like we were doing before we treated Half Moon Cove. Half Moon Cove, as a matter of fact, anything north of Route 20 and south of Ramshorn we can't treat at all.
Correct. So.
The way the permit is
I guess
now.
what we can do is we can put a Priscillacor treatment in the bid specs and just say if determined to be a go, we'll do it. Just get a
Right.
price on it.
I mean, you could use Priscillacor in any of the places where we can already treat, which is south of Route 20. That's a bona fide treatment, I guess. I think we were thinking more sonar, but it doesn't matter, except that Priscillacor is more expensive. The Priscillacor, we specifically wanted that because it supposedly did not kill the Potamogeton, so that's why we were looking at that. I'd like to apply that same thing to Old Faith, where we know that there's milfoil and Vasii.
So, okay.
So but that's something we have to go back to Natural Heritage, and based on your experience in Indian Lake, our experience at Half Moon, but I'm not gonna know what happened to the Vasii until June in Half Moon, right? Because it's not gonna come up, if it comes up, hopefully it comes up.
So,
And we didn't get all of Half Moon, that's my concern with the milfoil. They didn't get it all.
right.
Not that they didn't treat, where they treated, it seemed like it was effective, but there was a spot, there was they left a patch that wasn't treated.
I think we could work with this. And,
All right. Okay,
Angela and I could continue to talk more.
all right. So that'll work?
Yep.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And an update on the Grafton CPC project. Are we still in
Still
contract
under-
negotiation?
Yeah.
So, Bill, the holdup is that the vendor and the town have a different idea, and I'm assuming that Grafton would have the same issues that we're having in Shrewsbury. Because Shrewsbury's basically bidding the contract, right?
Right.
So,
They have a different idea on what?
on the way the contract's
Language.
worded,
Oh.
language of the contract, that the vendor's kind of pushing back on some of the
Like the
language in the contract.
insurance requirements.
Right. So that's kind of where we are now. So we're not,
So the Grafton CCC is meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And asking for a review, so can I ask one question?
sure.
Is this more on the legalistic terms in the contract or on what was supposed to be physically done?
No.
Illegal.
It's illegal.
Legal,
It
not
has
scope,
nothing to
okay.
do with what we're actually doing, except that there's an insurance. Everyone's complaining about the insurance because we're asking these guys to name the town, not just the town of Shrewsbury, the town of Grafton as a named insured. So if anything goes awry out there, the municipalities aren't liable for it.
Okay.
So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're standing with this. And obviously the vendor's going, well, no, wait a minute, like, we don't wanna, it's just more money for them.
Right.
If they have to, not more money, more liability.
And since half of Flint Pond is in Grafton, you can see why the problem is there.
Well, I can see if I was Grafton, I'd wanna do that.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah,
That-
okay.
That's kinda what we're,
That's enough of an understanding so I can tell them what to report tomorrow night.
okay? Yeah, so that's where we are. They're still going forward. It's not really gonna affect, there's nothing that we're doing that's gonna be a seasonal issue, like, if we don't do this by May, we're not gonna get good readings. No, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. I think that, the study's gonna be the study.
Yeah.
So, and the plan's gonna be the plan. So that's really what is going on. That's, the deliverable here is, what are we gonna do about this,
Right.
right? So it's not a time sensitive in that regard, but we do wanna get this worked out.
We definitely want to be,
Right.
not only do we want to do it, but the Grafton CPC has been wondering for a year,
Yeah.
when it's going to.
We signed the
Yeah,
contract.
we issued the contract, it's just they haven't signed
and
it.
pushed it back.
Right.
So it's kind of out of our hands.
Right.
No, I understand the issue, and I, well enough to explain it to them tomorrow night.
And on their end, the vendor that responded to this, got.
Yeah, they're like
It's a French,
bought out.
it's a French corporation, I think. Right?
Yeah, they're like yeah, I don't know.
I don't,
Doesn't
tell me it's not
matter.
Ukraine, okay?
They merged or something.
Yeah, I think it's French. So they're kind of pushing back on it.
I'll have to have my wife speak to him, she's French-Canadian.
I don't think that'll help if they're actually French, 'cause, all right,
Item 12, Mr. Chair.
item 12, update from Jacqueline Burmeister, Senior Environmental Analyst, Lake and Ponds, City of Worcester.
Yes, so, a few things we have going on. So, I guess in a moment, Mike, do you want to come up? We could talk a little bit about some of the sediment issues. As many of you know, there have been plumes of sediment coming from under the Route 9 bridge, the stormwater outfall there that have been emanating from the open construction sites up off of Hospital Drive. Plumes have been reported on March 25th, April 1st, April 8th, and April 19th. The Conservation Commission has been working with the 4 contractors that are up in that area with open sites, Wuji, Galaxy, WBDC, and Lynch. And so, given that it's been a continuous problem, some of the residents were reached out to DEP and some other folks just to try and get it addressed. And as a result, we had a tour of the sites and some of the improvements that have been made. And I'll let Mike Liberty of the Watershed Association talk a little bit more about how he found the sites.
Yeah, Jacqueline, what she said is everything's correct. We've had those events that I just passed around so you can have an idea of the magnitude of it. So we had met up on the 21st with the Economic and Development Planning Chief, Michelle Smith, what's her last name? Smith, sorry. And then Eric Flint, who's the conservation agent, as well as Jacqueline. And we spent a couple hours up there, and, we met with the Wuji people to begin with, and, we had quite a presence from them. There was about 8 of them out there, and they were explaining what they were doing. And they have made, what we've seen and what they've done up there is it's a very challenging site, and you don't see what's going on up there. All we see is the plume that comes into the lake. But they have done a lot of things. They've got a 1,000-gallon frac tank up there that they're trying to filter water, try and reduce the sediment, and then pump that into a retention pond. They have, silt sacks and also protection devices for the back of the stormwater drains so it doesn't overflow and go through underneath the granite headstone. So basically, they're doing a lot of things to try and prevent it, but they're still not positive that it's not gonna happen again. So they're kind of like on a trial, do the best we can, and then modify as we go forward. 2 sites up there. I know the WBDC site, and what's the other one that's dormant right now?
Galaxy.
Galaxy. They're kind of shut down for now because one's waiting for a tenant, and maybe the same thing with WBDC, but those sites seem to be tied up, buttoned up pretty good. WBDC had someone dump some illegal soil up, there's some soil up there illegally, and that was contributed to one of their problems with coming down. So they've since installed chain link fence around the whole perimeter. So that can't happen. They've, laid out stone to try and filter the water as it comes down the hill. The city's up there working, trying to put a road in, so there is exposed soil up there as well. But the city seems to be, we haven't had anything from that site yet. But overall, I was impressed by what I saw, because they are making an attempt to fix it and modify it. The Concom meeting, they're still left with the original order of conditions that they have, which is maintain silt barriers and that came with the original plan or the original order. But on the enforcement order that was just heard Monday at Concom in Worcester, they've kept the monitoring where they have a guy, if it starts to rain, he has to predict it to rain. He goes to the site to monitor it and see how everything's functioning and adjust as needed, and also reports through a SWIP back to the city to let them know, report out with pictures and whatnot. They're also using some flocculant, which is a new thing to me. They use this jute netting. It's like, just like a squared netting that gets laid down, like fabric. It's made of something natural, correct? And they lay it down and they sprinkle this flocculant over it, because one of the problems up there is that the soil is very, very fine. And you'll see in those pictures large plumes, because if it was heavier, it would sink and probably not flow as much down the storm drain. But it's really, it's easy to spread. It's like powder. So they've got this flocculant, which is, like I say, a powder that they sprinkle on top of this jute netting as part of their system to try and keep the soil stuck. It actually attracts the sediment to the netting and keeps the water as clean as possible. They've also set up a sump pit where that in the southeast corner, that's where the majority of the the Wuji site flows. That's their biggest problem area. They have a sump pump set up down there where it triggers at a certain level, and then also pumps back up either to the frac tank or to the retention pond in the back. One of the other things that came out of Concom was that there's room up there to create more detention ponds. So there's some options that they have, but they just haven't done yet for whatever reason. The site's very challenging. They're moving it, all parts are moving, during any given day. But like I say, I wouldn't rule it 100% if it, they're not saying it's 100% set, but they are working towards that goal. That's about all I have. If you have any questions,
Okay, so right now, they have taken fairly significant material steps to
Yep.
Address this issue, right? So, and which is heading in the right direction, because before, the first 3 or 4 plumes, we weren't really getting a whole bunch, except, it's not us, it's the other guys.
That's a problem, and I think one of the other things.
So that's good, and it still has the potential. Unfortunately, the bottom line is that if it gets into the stormwater system, it's coming into the lake in any significant manner. So if we have we haven't had, since you've been up there, we haven't had a 2 or 3 inch storm. I think those are the things that throw it down there. And it sounds like they're putting a thicken on there, like the stuff you put in your drink, if you're aspirating, they're putting that stuff on the top of it to kind of, paste it up a little bit so it doesn't move.
Yeah.
I'd be scared if I was to Worcester, because that's gonna stick to the bottom of the pipes, right?
I think it leaves the jute, does it?
I think it would probably settle in the catch basins, and they're all covered, and
Okay,
they
so-
clean,
so-
they
so you
have a,
clean those out.
yeah, they clean out the catch basin, silt sacks.
That's my other question, is the silt sacks are gonna, this is so much stuff material coming through there, that those have to fill up pretty well.
They do.
And pretty quickly, so they, that's part of their plan, is to keep those clean and
Yeah.
clear as much
Keep
as they
those
can?
clean and clear. Unfortunately, again, because it's so fine, a lot of it is getting
It's
through
getting
it as
through.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very challenging sediment to work with.
And it's this is clean fill, whatever. My mom would argue with that when she did the laundry, but it's,
I think Jacqueline probably could add more. The part that's kind of scary for the lake is the phosphorus that's on the nutrients that are in it, natural nutrients.
yeah, because they were seeding it at one point, right?
Well, it's just
Same as
a lot of phosphorus sorbs to sediment, and so we, usually during the winter months when these events have been happening, we're not in monitoring, but for better or for worse, we have been monitoring this winter because of the pump station event.
Yep.
And so we have been deploying and collecting samples. And so when the March 25th event happened, we were able to act really quickly and get out there and take some samples while the plume was still happening. And we did find some very high levels of phosphorus coming out with those particles.
Out of the outfall?
Out of the outfall. And so that is concerning to us. The concentrations cleared up pretty quickly. But, if they're settling to the bottom, there is the possibility of resuspension with, the dynamics of the lake. And so that is definitely something that we are continuing to keep an eye on. And we are going to be setting up our continuous monitoring buoys which are useful in tracking both not just sediment in the water column, but also cyanobacteria indicators such as phycocyanin. So both of those things would be like the cause and effect that we would be able to track with those buoys. And that will be one of the things I bring up in a moment about the location of that buoy. Traditionally, we've had it in a more southwestern area of the lake, and talking about relocating it closer to that outfall so that we could theoretically catch these events when they're happening and track it and actually get a real-time reading of what's going on, as well as any future consequences that might be related to that increased phosphorus and sediment in the water.
Okay, so you want to move the buoy in the South Basin east over to the Worcester shore.
West.
Sorry, west over to.
I'm sorry, I said western.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You got me turned around now. So you
Yeah.
want to move it west?
I want to move it
shore.
west, yes.
So it's kind of, is it going to be in front of the outfall? Is it going to be kind of out, like we're kind of, it seems like the outfall throws it out there, and it goes past Ram's Horn and kind of
Yeah.
booms in front of.
And that
front of the
whole area
commissioner's apartment.
is not necessarily representative of the whole lake, and so there is still some thought that needs to go into exactly where we want to put it. I really wanted to just solicit any concern, or like just hear any feedback or concerns you might have about any of those areas, and we could plan around them.
All right.
Yeah.
The rowers will be happy if we get it out of the South Basin. So, I'm imagining this kind of near the southern tip of Ram's Horn, in that point in front of the Lakeshore condos, which I think is pretty much I don't think anyone tools through there in their boat because it's fairly shallow behind the island. So and that they'd have to be coming around the island for this to be any kind of navigational issue, right? They'd have to be coming in between
In that
between the
location.
Worcester shore and
Yes.
Ram's.
I mean, there's still the possibility that we just put it a little bit out from like the pump station or something.
All right.
So just wondering if you had any concerns putting it in any of the other locations in that area.
Does everyone know what we're talking about?
Yes,
All right, and where we're talking about it?
yes.
Michael?
Roughly.
All right, so does anyone have an issue with moving her over to the other side? From where it is now?
No, except brought up one question.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility of the sediment gets so thick that literally the sensors won't see anything because they'll be blinded?
The sensor has an automatic brush on it, actually. So every 15 minutes or 30 minutes, it takes the sample, and it's using like infrared and everything to do that. And it's like a glass. It's a flat glass piece that covers the sensor on the bottom of the buoy, and then it has like a brush that sweeps around and brushes it off. So we do see accumulation of like algae and sediment on the bottom of the buoy, but the sensor is always clean.
Okay.
So it's a pretty cool device for the size of it. It does quite a bit. So I don't foresee that being an issue.
No, seems like a good plan.
Okay.
And just one other thing, back to trying to figure out who's the contributor, what project is the contributor of the most silt. One of the, part of on the enforcement order is turbidity monitoring. So they'll tell, how thick, how much, sediment is actually flowing to try and pinpoint the problem sites. So they're trying to narrow it down, not only to hold someone accountable, but to try to fix the problem and see, where it's coming from.
They must have been excited about that.
Yeah, there was a little bit of resistance at the Concom meeting. They were, the sites, all two of them, wanted to try to alleviate that, and after 2 rainstorms of a half an inch, that if they didn't have a problem, that they would not be required to do this monitoring. And the chairman, thankfully said, no, it's not enough for 2 storms.
Right.
We'll evaluate every month, because you might not have rain, too, to that magnitude. So, but, overall, they're taking a lot of steps to try to.
Okay. Sounds like they're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm kind of a wait-and-see attitude. Okay, you're doing all this stuff, let's see if it works. If it works, that's great. And maybe even, what you'd like to see, if it didn't totally eradicate it, at least, start to
Slow it down.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But, again, I'll wait and see. I'm glad the city, I'm really grateful the city kind of said, no.
Yeah, no,
Two storms isn't enough. This has been going on for 18 months.
Yeah.
Seven documented times this has happened. So 2 more storms over you did this is not the best indicator. Good.
Yeah.
So Mike, thanks so much for
Oh,
both
no worries.
you guys. Thanks
Thank
so
you
much for
very
going
much,
up there and
no worries at all.
doing that stuff.
Yeah, and I guess just, a follow-up is that, we have been monitoring through the winter this year in reaction to the Lake Ave Pump Station event. And we've been monitoring mostly around that area. We are going to be switching into our normal monitoring program, which is going out twice a month, and there are several other sites that we do.
Yep.
We will be keeping an eye on those other locations, but as of now, it seems like, the effects, we're not seeing effects as of now from that event. But obviously, as the water
From the sewer-
warms,
from the
from
sewer
the sewer spill, but as the water continues to warm, we're gonna keep an eye out for potential events affecting the entire lake as well. So we're gonna be starting that program next week. Other monitoring that's gonna be beginning next week includes the Worcester Cyanobacterium Monitoring Collaborative. There are volunteers on Lake Quinsigamond that will be additionally going out twice a month to collect samples for cyanobacteria on Lake Quinsigamond. We have a volunteer for Newton Pond as well as Jordan Pond in Shrewsbury. However, and actually our program has grown. We have all of our sites from last year coming back, some new sites. The only site we don't have a volunteer for in the Watershed area is Flint Pond. And so if there's a resident on the commission, perhaps, that is interested in sampling on Flint Pond, or has a buddy that wants to do so, we're definitely still looking for volunteers.
All right. I'll raise my hand for that, since you called me out.
Yes, so we'll be in touch.
All right.
Great.
All right. Yeah.
But yes, so
I want a
So that'd
Parks
be
and Rec
great.
T-shirt.
we have stickers this year for sure. Bumper stickers. So that's that. As you mentioned before, we're going to be getting a PO for the invasive aquatic plant mapping. We're hoping to have that line up so we could kind of use it to inform some of our management over the summer, if possible. Finally, excited to work with the Watershed Association on some educational materials on water chestnut removal, but I'll let Barbara talk about that.
All right. Jacqueline, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for keeping up on this.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one is the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association.
Hello, I'm Barbara Kickham. let's see, Angela had got some students from Townsend High School to clean up Oak Island, and they removed about 3 dump trucks of brush and leaves and garbage. So they did a great job. They spent last Wednesday, and it was very cold, and spent the whole day cleaning up, did a great job. So I
Great.
wanted to ask you if I can send them a thank you
Yeah,
note.
I'll get you there.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. Some kids out there. That was really nice. So we also have restarting our storm drain marking program. We got some maps actually today, and we have some Newton Pond residents that have offered to do their watershed. So we have a number of people that will start over in that neighborhood. And we have the medallions, and we have the kits and everything. They're ready to go, so that's nice. So I think they have scouted out about 85 locations, and they'll get some more from Shrewsbury, some more locations. And then it's water chestnut removal. Angela has also hooked us up with a Eagle Scout who wants to do something with invasive aquatics, so we thought this would be a great project for him. So we will work with him whenever, I don't have his name yet, but we want to get on that like by the middle of July. So we need to notify neighbors and get a hold of who else, where else it might be located. Right now, we know it's on the very north end of the lake, and it's on, I always forget that neighborhood. What's that neighborhood?
Old Faith?
Old Faith.
Yep.
So we know it's there, but there are a few comments on Facebook that made us think that it's other places too. So we were brainstorming last night with Jackie, and she's going to do a Blue Space Minute, which is on the Worcester DPW site. They have these 1 minute or couple of minute explanatory. This is how we sample for cyanobacteria. They have several of these public service commercial or whatever announcements. So we're going to ask Jackie to create one for how to identify and remove the water chestnuts, because we keep getting those questions. What do they look like? How do I get rid of them? What do I do with them? So we're gonna start with her to work on some kind of a blue space thing that's hosted on the Worcester DPW site, and then we can refer people to that. And then we had another idea of getting a drone, maybe from the Shrewsbury, media connection, and have them fly over and show people the area of the lake we know that we have water chestnut, and so neighbors can be on the lookout for it, and then zoom in and show what it actually looks like. And why are we focusing on water chestnut separately from what Peter's doing and what the commission is doing? It's something that responds very well to hand removal, and it's very persistent. It has these big nuts that have a 1/4 inch like spikes, and so when you step on them or try to pick them up, they're sharp. So, but it's something you want to get rid of. Once those water chestnuts drop, they reproduce for 10 or 12 years. They can be dormant, whatever. They're pretty nasty. But this is something that the residents can do to help save costs, so we don't want to have to dredge or mechanical harvest or use herbicides. So that's a big focus we're going to do this summer in July. And that's about it. So,
All right. To tag on to what Barbara said, that water chestnut right now I think it's manageable by hand pulling, and that's probably the most effective. My understanding is that's the most effective way to do it at the level we're at right now at Lake Quinsigamond. That said, it is by far probably the most aggressive invasive species, aquatic plant species that we have in the lake, and it can literally take over half Old Faith Road, Old Faith Bay. It'll probably eradicate the milfoil problem, but it'll take over that entire bay, in a matter of a year or two, and then it's a problem.
Yeah.
So
you can't canoe through it, you can't kayak through it when it gets
Right.
that dense. And Jackie's got a lot of experience with Patches Pond
Yep.
in Worcester, very dense accumulation of water chestnut that they've they've had to mechanically remove a lot, and it's gonna keep
Still there.
coming back.
Yep, and I remember, you know, we put a dock in there years ago, I'm gonna say 2015 or something, and it was covered, probably 2/3 of that pond. And they were trying to do it, at that point, they were trying to do it with kayaks and get it out of there, but it obviously didn't work, so. And there is a chemical treatment for it, but at this stage, you know, probably the best way to do it is to hand pull it. If you see it, you know, pay attention. If you're watching it right now, I can't actually show you a graphic of it, but, you know, look up water chestnut on the web, and if you see it in front of your house, pull it out. Because you definitely do not want it in front of your house, especially if you want to, you know, get your boat in and out. So, great. Thanks, Barb, as
Yep.
always. We have a couple of correspondence here that we'll go through quick. Ann,
For clarification, I'm sorry.
Yep.
On, the regatta for October 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
It also has a boat ramp closure, so you do need to specifically vote that as well. So you approved the.
we approved the race, but we didn't
really
approve the closure.
say the ramp closure, so we usually
Okay.
vote on that.
Okay, so I'll take a motion with the same covenant
Yeah.
on it.
I make a motion, Mr. Chair, that in regards to this 8th and 9th of October, Quinsigamond Rowing Association, is that what it's called? Regatta Point
Community.
All rolling
Regatta
event,
Point Community Sailing.
that that we approve of the ramp being closed then.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for keeping us honest on that one. That would have been bad. So we have a correspondence from Ann Zedek, a lake resident, who pointed out that there's a stray buoy out in the lake. We tracked it down. It was actually from Regatta, Al Fern. The legendary Al Fern. He has a robotic sailboat course out there that they use, and he thought he got them all last season, and he didn't get them all out, I guess, at the end of the year. So we got that straightened out, and it's gone. So that's nice. And then we had a correspondence regarding 74 Bay Edge. I'm not going to go into that right now as far as, like, you know, what that is, but we discussed this in detail last year. It's on the Worcester side. It's a wedge lot that kind of comes down, and there's only 10 feet of waterfront. They wanted to get a dock request in there. We sent them back to Worcester Conservation Commission, and the correspondence we got now was the application for the Chapter 91 permit for the dock. So just as a matter of any significance with this, it's the first Chapter 91 permit that's come across the commission's desk. So,
Can I ask you what a Chapter 90 permit is,
so,
please?
oh, sorry. Sorry, so the Chapter 91 permit, we have, you know, Lake Quinsigamond has purview over the docks on Lake Quinsigamond, okay? The DEP, under Chapter 91, also has purview over permitting docks on any great pond in Massachusetts. So it's basically a separate permit process for the permit process we do for the docks. And, you know, this came up, I don't know, probably 8, 9 years ago, that it was coming. They haven't, it's one of those things that the state hasn't done anything about this for 40 years. It's been on the books, it's been a law. This isn't a new thing, it's just, they just never enforced it. So now they're coming back. So there's, I can say, and I'm pretty sure I know all of them that have Chapter 91 permits on the lake, and it's probably 5.
So it trumps.
One of them's a bridge.
So it circumvents LQC's
No,
permitting?
they still have to get a permit from us.
Okay.
But our permit, our application process, when we the first thing we do is you have to get all the approvals from conservation. Worcester Conservation has directed everyone towards the Chapter 91, which technically speaking is what they're supposed to do, but Shrewsbury Conservation has not done that, but or Grafton, but Worcester has. So that's what this is. This is coming out of that part of it. it's what we, we sent them back. We basically said, we can't deal with this without you, filling out the process in the right way. So, and my understanding is for an existing dock, which I don't, the only dock I know in the water over there is a deck that sticks out, so it's not really a navigational hazard or anything, so there's no issue on my end for that, but
Right.
that's where we are. So that's
Thank you.
that's what that is. Did that explain it, Sid?
Thank you.
Okay. I think that there's only one other correspondence that we got. We got another dock application, so I'm gonna table that until, you have a chance to go look at it, I guess, or someone has a chance to go look at it. It's over on 34 Oakland Ave.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if it's an existing dock that they're replacing in the same thing. It doesn't, now that I look at the pictures,
I looked on the GIS and there was a.
there is a dock, I think,
Yeah.
I'm almost positive there's a dock there already. So they may be replacing that, but I think they're adding on a jet ski port. I think that's what they're doing. It's a floating jet ski port that adds on to the side. It's probably 10 feet by, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's probably like 10 feet wide and maybe 12 feet long.
So it's just a PWC lift?
Yeah, basically, not even, it's a floating PW. Oh,
Okay.
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's one of those. I think that's what he's putting on there. That's what the picture said. I'll make sure you get that application for it.
Okay.
And another quick thing is Harry, I forgot Harry's last name, from the rowing community, wrote an email to me and said that, hey, he ran into as it turns out, basically a 25 square foot bright pink paddle boat in South Bay with one of his, I think it was,
Yeah, it was a four, Harry was, Songrath was steering it.
yeah.
It was completely submerged, so it just broke off the downward strut on the back of the four when they went
Yeah.
over it. And when they brought the boat in, they found the rear of the boat was leaking as well, so it was out of commission. And he sent you and me an email about
Right.
it,
So,
suggesting it probably should be removed.
yeah, and I think it's gone out of the way now, Mike, it did, right?
Yeah, it is.
So, when I saw it, though, it was literally, had to be 6 inches out of the water. It was submerged, for sure, but it was literally bright pink. I don't know how you could miss it.
Yeah.
And not during the day. I mean, at night, that's when it's dangerous.
Yeah.
When anytime these vehicles are dangerous. But here's my message out to all my friends and family on Lake Quinsigamond. If you see something like that floating around in the lake, please, if you can't safely do it yourself, ask for some help and get it out of harm's way if you can. You can call us at that point and say, hey, I got this thing tied up to my dock, and can you help me do something with it? We won't stiff you with that, but it would be nice and safe for everybody if you see it to go out there. Because by the time we hear about it a lot of times, it's something like this, that a boat hits it, and thank God no one got hurt. So that would be a helpful thing. It's kind of what living on the lake's all about. It's part of it. All right.
Unfortunately, inevitably, every year, there's 2 or 3 submerged objects like this.
Oh, yeah.
A paddle boat, a dock, a this, a that.
All right. So set a date for the next meeting?
Wednesday, May 25th,
25th.
Wednesday, May 25th? Okay.
here,
At the Selectmen's Room?
yes.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Chair, family business, I won't be able to attend that particular night, but
Okay.
maybe we can do it by Zoom or whatever, but whatever. I have some
Okay.
important family business.
All right. No worries. We have to dock you, but I think you've already used all your sick days. So, and at that point, I think we're through it. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.